because I think it goes beyond just payments. It goes beyond just settling whatever. I think it's beyond that. Yeah. I hope I answered your question. It was
Yes, there was some other person who wanted to ask. Please, we are almost into the session, so if you have a big question, you can ask quickly and then we dive in. If not, we can start.
okay. If we do not have any question, I think we can go ahead and start right away.
Start right away.
Um, Yesterday we
Okay.
had an introductory session about how lightning works, and today I was planning to do a small coding yesterday, but it looked like it wasn't possible. So we had to shift the activity that we were supposed to do yesterday to today. So today I expect a very short session. If everything goes well, I think it will be because it just overflew from yesterday to today. Yeah, so I'm going to try to share my screen, and okay, you tell me if you see it.
Yes, we see it very well.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. So this is our session. It's a very short session. I think it's going to be more of hands-on, and just to show you how we are going to keep on doing things. For the new people that have just joined us, we are trying to build a small project in using Lightning Network. We are trying to see how you can build what they call them laps, lightning applications, like how they call the other side decentralized applications. So for this side of Bitcoin, they are called lightning applications. So a lot of people do not know that you can build very nice applications using Lightning Network. And yeah, it's a very new technology, still young, but I think it's moving at a very fast pace, and I think it's a good idea. So we're trying to build a small, very basic wallet, a basic Lightning wallet, like how Shukuru does it. You're going to see how Breeze does it, like how majorly all these Lightning application do it. So we're going to try to do that. We would start with a small scripted backend, and then if time allows us, we'll build a UI, maybe a front end in React, and try to connect and see how the whole logic works behind the scenes. So today we are going to try to see how you can integrate that. I have a list of resources that we are going to follow. The documentations. I'm going to try so hard to always drop the links in the chats if you guys want to look through what we are doing. And yesterday we had to download some software. We had to download Polar. So what we use Polar is to allow us to test and maybe run a small lightning node on our computer without downloading a lot of data, without downloading a lot of blockchain, without spinning off a real Bitcoin node. So it's like a small network. So it helps us test locally. So if you're going for it, then that's Polar. Polar will need you to have Docker if you're trying to install it. So it uses Docker Compose. So if you go and download Docker, I think it's called Docker Desktop, and it comes with Docker Compose. Install it on your PC, and you'll be good to go. And then we'll also be using Node.js. Any scripting language that you want can work. Basically, any language that can make API calls. You can use Python, you can use Node.js, you can use anything that, provided it can allow you to make HTTP calls, that can work perfectly well. So I'm going to try to use Node.js with JavaScript, just to keep it very simple for the whole development, because I don't want to have separate languages in the back end and doing something and having another language in the front end. I want to keep it very consistent and easy. And we'll try to use VS Code to script, and I'll try to drop that in the description. And yeah, I think that's with the software, and I'll go ahead and jump into the code editor straight away. So I don't know if you guys can see, maybe I'll try to change to light mode. I don't know how they do that. If I know how they do that.
Is it preferences?
Preferences, code, settings, yeah, theme, color theme. Which one is it?
The light.
Oh, okay. Oh,
You can also use Control Plus, I think, or Command Plus. Yeah, I think it can also increase on the. Yeah.
oh, okay, okay. The internet people won't be happy if they find this out. Okay, so what I'm trying to do here, I prepared a small script that we are going to use. We'll try to build, like I said, a small backend that will allow us to call the APIs. We're going to try to create the invoices. We're going to try to pay the invoice and everything. So I'm going to come back and explain this code, but the first step we would have to do is to spin up Polar. So what I'll do, I'm going to run Docker, and Docker, because Polar uses the Docker images, so you start it, but we do not have to know about Polar. We do not have to know about Docker. Only thing is to make sure that it's running, and after that we can go ahead and open up Polar so that we can start up our lightning service. So okay, so I don't know if it's coming. Okay, so this is Polar, and this is our small lightning node, or not network we were doing yesterday, and it's what we are going to build on. So we have Alice's node. Let me start it off. So try to make it come online, and waiting for it to come online. And yeah, so yesterday we added some small information. We gave it some, I think there's no money. We have to add. Okay, this is Bob. Yeah. So yesterday we were playing around with Alice's node. We gave her some sats, so she has some money, and she does not have any channels because I closed that off. So okay, our node is running. So now I want you to think of this as for example, an application like Shukuru. Shukuru is like Alice. So think of Alice as Shukuru. So they are running their node, and what they do is when they are running their node, they have these awesome functions they can play around with. So yesterday we looked at the terminal commands. We looked at the commands that you can use to create invoices, to open channels, to close channels, and everything. So everything like that is done on the node. So, and when you go to the node, there's this documentation. So we are going to try to keep it open for everyone out there. So this is the documentation. So what LND does, it gives you these APIs that you can use to communicate with your node. So you can use, maybe you can build a gRPC service that you can use to communicate with your node. You can maybe use REST, or you can communicate with it using REST. So maybe let me open some of the NPI endpoints so that you can look at what we are going to try to do. So okay, so when you look at this, these are the endpoints that we use. So they give you these shell commands. They give you in REST. In REST, they give you in JavaScript and Python. Or if you're building something in gRPC, you can then also connect using that. So this is a very good resource, and if you are trying to go ahead and want to expand on that, then I'll drop that in the link in the description. So this is what mainly we are going to be building upon. We are going to call these API endpoints, and just to show you how everything works in the background for the service. Okay, so to keep it simple, let me try to move this closer to the node. So here we have a simple JavaScript Express server. So we may be spinning up a JavaScript node, project. You start with yarn init, then you give it the -yes. It will give you this package.json, and then after that, then you can go ahead and add this Express. Express is a backend service. We have very few services. We have Express. We have Axios. Axios will help us call these endpoints. We'll use Axios to call these endpoints, and then we have FS. FS is just a file system that these guys need. So you look at this. So it converts the macarons, as you know what a macaron does. So we need that library to do this. And then we'll have to have HTTPS. So HTTPS is also security that we'll have to add to this reject unauthorization on the API for LND. So those are the few stuff that we want. I don't want to keep it very complex and all that stuff, so we'll keep it very simple. The .env, I don't think we use it anywhere, but I'll show you where we may need it. And yeah, so basically to add all these libraries, you just use yarn add Axios, then maybe Express, and then FS, and then HTTPS, and press enter, and everything just keeps on going. So okay, I think that is that, and we'll go through. So after doing that, we have this index.js file. What the index.js file is, the startup file. It's the starter config file where you spin up your server. So here we import Express from the first line. We create a method off of that, and then we give it a port, and then here we allow it to listen to this port number. And yeah, so basically that's that. So let me try to start up the node, the backend. So I use nodemon to run the backend. So you can see it's running on this server. So if I go ahead and try to call that endpoint, I'm going to use Postman to test out these endpoints. I don't know if it has a light mode. Okay, themes and light. Yes. Does it zoom?
Yes.
Beautiful. So this is the root endpoint. This is the root endpoint that we are going to call, this one, and we expect to get that hello from the central code. So you can see that. So the setup is there. Our backend is running properly. Let me go ahead and close that. So the first thing that we want to do, to keep it very simple, I created these helper files. So what these helper files are mainly the configurations for these endpoints, because I don't want to continue to keep on copying this code and pasting it around and repeating myself. So I created these blueprints for maybe a GET request. Basically, it's just this function copied and made it open to some variables. For example, here it has the URL. When it's called, we'll pass in the URL, and we'll pass it to the REST endpoint from the node, and append that URL there. And then we have this HTTPS, which is this function here, which so we reject unauthorized confirmations, that is back to LND. And then here we pass in the macaron path. Basically it's just this one pasted here, and then we give it to the Axios config and make some validations, then we return the required data. So it's the same function as post, only that this time it returns, it takes in some data as an argument, and then that data is passed through here. So the only difference is this part and this part from this one. This one does not need the data because it's a get request. So for you to be able to communicate with your node, for example, create invoices, get information about your node, there's what they call keys. What these keys are, when you think of your normal wallet, your normal blockchain wallet, it has maybe private keys, it has this authorization keys and what. So it's the same thing with your node. You must have configuration files. You must have configuration keys for you to be able to communicate and create and interact with your node. So what these files are what they call macaron files. So when you spin up your node, Lightning creates for you a macaron file, and it finds a way, it puts it under your node and your CLI so that you can copy it around and pass it through all the functions that you want to call in your node, so that it gives you the authorization. So this is the same thing. So you can see here they imported the macaron path, and then they were able to pass it in every endpoint. So it's the authorization part of it all, because without it then you lose access to your node. So if you heard of the not your keys, not your crypto, there's also the equivalent of not your keys, not your node in Lightning. So basically this is the most important part of it all in your node. So if you ever want to spin up your node, you need to be very careful of how safe you keep these keys. Okay, so we need to pass that in our endpoint. So here you have a number of options that you can do, but you may download them. Usually what people do, they download them from the Lightning node. It's a small file, and then they put it on their local computer, and then they can manage it locally, which is the most recommended way of you doing it. Keep it on your local computer and then manage your node from there. So here what we do, what Polar does for you, it does the same thing for you. It creates for you these keys. So if you look at this is the macaron for Alice. Bob has the same thing, and Carol has the same thing. So the good thing with Polar, it puts for you the path where it shows you where it's located on your computer. So there are certain set of rules that are detonated for this for these keys. There is the overall macaron, which does everything. It does creating invoices, opening channels, what and what. There is also this invoice macaron, which is just specific for invoice work. It doesn't do anything more than invoice work. So there's also the read-only macaron, this one, which is just for reading balances, looking at the wallet balances, and looking at the node information and everything. So it's up to the developer, but usually most of the time they use this overall macaron that is not limited with permission. So it's what I'm going to get. So it's the first thing that I'll copy from here. So I'll go back to my code, and here I will drop it in this variable as it is. I hope I didn't miss anything. That is from Polar. And then the next thing that I need to have is the REST host. So the REST host is where the node is going to be configured. So the same thing with Polar. It gives you all these endpoints that you can use to communicate with your node. So it gives you the gRPC. If you're building something with gRPC, this is the endpoint that you'll use. If you're doing something with peer-to-peer, this is the WebSocket endpoint that you'll use, and everything. But if you're trying to host yours in the cloud, then you'll have to configure what this stuff is. So let me copy that, and I'll go ahead and drop it there. So when you go back to the documentation, you'll see that this endpoint has this prefix of /v1. So keep in mind that we'll have to keep this /v1 there. Okay, so I think with this file everything is done, and we can go ahead and move on to the other things. So unless you guys have any question, you can feel free to interrupt anytime that you feel like. And so to now that that is done, I'm going to try to first test and see if I'm getting my data coming through. And the first thing that I'll do, I'm going to try it and test with this endpoint. And the thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to look for a very good endpoint that I can test with. So I would recommend you to go with the get info endpoint. What this endpoint does, it spits out the information about your node. So it's a get only endpoint. So this is what we are going to try to do, and we are going to call it on this get request. So the only thing that we need is the URL. Yeah. So I'll go ahead and maybe I'll put this in a try and catch block, and I'll return response.json.error. Okay, so I'll put this in a result, and I'll call the await on that, because it has to be an asynchronous, because it's a network call. And then our function is node get request. It has been imported from helpers, and you can see we need this URL. So the URL is this get info. So and /get info, and after that maybe we can return the result in JSON like that. So I don't know if I should, let me just spit it out like that. So fingers crossed, our endpoint is ready, and we can go ahead and call it and see if it comes through. So yeah, so you can see we've got an OK status, and we've got the information about our node. We've got the name is Alice, as Paula said here, the name is Alice. So basically this is what we've retrieved here. We've got the name, the alias, the node public key, which is this, and more information about the node. So good signs. I think our node is responsive, and we can go ahead and do more stuff with that. Okay, up to that point, if you have anything, you can jump in, and yeah, we can.
Okay, excuse me.
Yes.
Mine is an inquiry. Shall we have a link to the GitHub repo of
Yes,
the code?
I'm going to push this. I'm going to push after the session, and I think I'll drop it. I don't know how we'll do it, but
Yes.
we'll have to find a way of linking the repo so that you guys can go ahead and try it out. Yeah.
Okay, I will link it with the video. So
Yes.
yes.
I think that would be
Thank
a
you.
good idea. Okay. Should we move on, or do we have anything? Okay. Now I would like to create some invoices. I want to simulate how maybe the Shukuru does the payments and everything. So it's what I'm going to try to do. So the first thing that usually what happens, for example, when you open your wallet and you want to pay someone, maybe you're using Shukuru and they are using something like Moon. What the Moon guy will create an invoice, and they'll show you a QR code. And when they show you the QR code, you'll open your camera of Shukuru, and you'll scan it, and when you scan it, it will show you the money, the balances, the sats, and then you press confirm and the money will go. So the first thing that that happens usually is to read the invoice. So I'm going to try to the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to try to create an endpoint that reads the invoice. So let me go ahead and I'll copy this. I'll just copy this and I'll go ahead. I think it will be a post request because it's going to accept some data. Let me get rid of that and I'll get the body. So request.body, I think it's request.body, like that, and then we'll get the invoice. So I'll call it invoice. So let me try and see if that spits out very well. I'll call this read. Okay, I'll call this invoice slash read. Yeah. So I'll call that invoice slash read. I'll copy that and then go to Postman, duplicate this, and I'll rename it to invoice read. Maybe I'll call it read invoice for a better name. Read invoice, and I'll change this to post, and then we'll call that endpoint. And then when you go to the body of that, change that to raw and to JSON, and then our body is invoice. So we'll say invoice will go here. So we expect to come up with that. Looks like it's not coming through. Did I spell this right? Request.body. Wow. Okay. My endpoint is not getting called. Why? Did I spell this wrong? Voice, read, and we have that. My terminal complaining? No. Why is it not working? I see posts, we have this. Post request. Let me enter wrong one. Looks okay. Change that. Oh, I think I know what the problem is. I think I may know
What could be the,
yeah.
what could be the problem?
The problem may be because what I know with Express, you have to configure everything from scratch. So usually the JSON passing file, the modules, is you have to do it because when you pass in information like this, it does not know how to pass it back to JSON. So
Okay.
you have to do a lot of configurations, if I'm not mistaken. It could be the issue, and I think something that is up the JSON. Okay. This is the point where I Google ChatGPT.
Yeah, solution for
Yeah, so
all of us.
it could be the problem, but I'm not very sure. I don't know the thing, the syntax of head, but I know what I'm looking for. So I think it's Express, JSON, middleware, syntax. I think. Yeah, I think it's this. This is the thing. This is the thing. So app.used. So this is the middleware. Okay, if it doesn't work, then I'm going to be the saddest guy. Okay, another different error sign. Good progress.
Good progress.
Yes, different error message. Okay, so let's try again and see if we can get this as hello world. Oh, this we'll change this to post.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Finally. This is why TypeScript is the way. Everything is, you can't get those surprises. So we have that invoice data. So what happens is when you scan your wallet application, this is what you're looking for. So let me take you to this endpoint, and I think it's add invoice, this one. So usually when you go ahead and create an invoice, maybe let me do it from here. So think of this as moon. This guy, this is the moon guy. So what the moon guy will create an invoice like this, and then they will give it some money. So for example, you create that. There is this string that it gives you. So this string is what you give to your reader. So when the moon guy creates an invoice, behind that QR code that you scan is this string. So what Shukuru does, it will scan this string and it will decode it. When it decodes that, it will give you this. It will know where, under this Lightning node, this key, it has the public key of the node that created it, the amount, the position that the node is, the network fee, which is usually 1 sat, and then maybe the hoops where it's going to pass through. So I don't know. I think I created a very big invoice, but I'm going to try and test with something like 5K. So I'll create an invoice of 5K and copy that to the clipboard. So let me put this string somewhere safe that I'll come and pick it from there. So this is what, actually, let me just put it to my endpoint. So this is what we are going to pass through here. It's a very strong key, but it will be decoded by Alice's node. So when you go back to the endpoint, I'm confusing myself. Okay, when you go back to the endpoint, you'll see that we have this decode invoice. I think it's called decode invoice. Is it decode? Is it read? This is get node info. I think it's this one. It could be this one, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, I don't think it's that one. So the easiest way I get that is I look at the terminal, because the terminal usually gives you all the code and all the commands. So let me zoom in. So usually what I do, I'll go with ln CLI and dash help. So it points out everything. So we have under payments, but we are not using at payments. We are doing invoice stuff. So I'll look at invoice. This is the add invoice. So I'm looking at this lookup invoice. So there's a difference between this decode pay request. What decode pay request is, if I'm not going to bash it away, but I think what it did, it's like it decoded, but then it didn't pay. So it's different from lookup invoice. Lookup invoice is what you are looking for using the payment hash. So what I do, I go ahead and copy that, and then I come to these docs and paste that. So usually what Gitbook does, it will find that code in the documentation. If it does, then you see that. So you go there and you can see, so this is the lookup invoice thing that we want. Let's try it in Polar and see. So ln CLI, okay. ln CLI, so you go to lookup invoice, and then you paste in this invoice hash there. Paste that there. I think I messed up somewhere. So okay, that's hopefully it decodes. Unable. Why is it unable? Okay. Let me try decode invoice. Where is invoice stuff? Okay, decode invoice per request. Oh, I know why it's happening. The thing is, when you create an invoice using Polar, there's the way it decodes the invoice so that you cannot do it, reverse it using the terminal, because there's the way it does, maybe it cannot decode it through the terminal. So if you want to investigate it, you have to create it from the terminal, and then you decode it from another terminal. So the way it creates the invoice is different on both terminals. So it's something that I had to find out. So a lot of this stuff that you maybe if you guys are going to try and build out these things, you'll find that a lot of this stuff are not pointed out in the documentation. So me to find out that the lookup invoice and the code invoices are very different. They give out different results. It took me like a day without try and error. So it's not usually pointed out in the documentation. You find out a lot of this stuff you'll have to figure out yourself. So maybe if I try to demonstrate that, let me try to open Bob's terminal, and I say ln CLI, and I'll go ahead. So what creates an invoice is it's called add invoice, this one. So add invoice, you go that, and then you use these flags to give out the amount. So for example, I want to create an invoice of 3K, and then I think that's that. Okay, so I can give it a memo. I give it the amount. So let me copy that. So the amount, and then the memo. The memo is like the message. So I'll call it Bob's first invoice. Okay, AMT and that. So this is the invoice. So what you need, you need to get this string. So when you get that string, I'll close Bob's terminal and I'll open Alice's terminal. and maybe I'll zoom through so you guys can look at that. So I'll go with lncli, lookup invoice, paste that, and it's the same thing. Okay, lncli decode invoice. Oh, okay. I could be bashing this stuff. Okay, I think it's something with LND, but let me try to list through and see how many invoices that Bob has done. It could give us a clear picture if these invoices are getting created properly. Am I launching Alice? Oh, I wanted to launch Bob. So let me open Bob's terminal, zoom through that, ln CLI, and I think it's list invoices. Yeah, so I'll go ahead and ln CLI list. Did I copy that? List invoices, and it will show all the invoices that Bob has created. So we have this Bob's first invoice. So when you scan with your Shukuru wallet, this is the string that it will decode, and when you decode, it will give you all this information. So you look at this one. This is the last one that we created with the memo. Bob's first invoice. It gives you the value, it gives you the pre-image, and it gives you this R hash. So okay, let me see. Look up invoice. Now, I think I know the issue. The issue is when you create a Lightning invoice, it gives you all this information about the node. For example, Bob or Moon. It gives you the path that your invoice is going to take to get to Moon. So the problem is Alice was not able to decode this guy's invoice because it does not know where Bob's node is. So the path is not clear to this guy. So the first thing that you have to do is to make sure that Alice is connected to Bob. And that is the process of opening channels. So if I try to connect Alice's node to Bob, like that. So now Alice knows where Bob's node is. So when she's trying to decode his invoice, hopefully she can read through and see where his node is located. So let me try that thing again and see if this time it can work out. So ln CLI look up invoice. Let's decode this and see if it works. So I think now this one uses the R hash. Yeah, this one was created with Polar. So we need to create the invoice using the Bob's terminal this time. So let me open up Bob's terminal. And when I open Bob's terminal, ln CLI, let me list some of his invoices. So list invoice, ln CLI, list invoices with an S. So I need to use this. So with the terminal, you use this. So let me go ahead and decode that. ln CLI look up invoice. Fingers crossed, and that does not work. Okay. Use the payment request. ln CLI look up invoice. Whoa, I don't know why this is not working, but anyway, you get the idea. So let's try to create the endpoint that decodes that through here. So we have the lookup invoice endpoint. So here it shows you that you'll have to enter the payment hash, this one, in form of a string. So we've copied that. We've copied that to this, hopefully, and we can see. So what we have to do is to get this endpoint here and pass it through our helper. So our helper is a post. Oh, so this is a get request. So the read function is a get request. So I'll go ahead and I'll lncli, it's called node get request, get that. So the URL is that, and pass that through as the string, like how it's telling us. And before I do that, let me make sure that my invoice is coming through from this side. Yes, it's coming through. So let me try to pass it through and see what happens. So I'll get that, put it in an await, and spit out the result here. Okay. So spit out the result there. Everything looks okay. We've got the node. The endpoint looks fine. And let's try and see that. So we have a problem with our node. We have endpoint, and so I had a mistake with my URL. I hope I don't mess it up again. Another issue, we have Axios error. Oh, looks like this is coming through. Okay. Watch me be debug.
Let me just ask, is Docker on?
Yes, this is, yeah, it's
Okay.
on, but I may need to maybe stop the, maybe let me try to restart. Let me try to restart and okay. It's taking ages. Let me try to create an invoice from Alice and decode it from her side and see if this works. It's not working. Am I using the wrong endpoint? So we have node info, we have lookup invoice, wallet service. This creates the invoice. Let me look at that. Guys, this guy's documentation is not the most clean. You will have to go through a lot of these endpoints and trying out. So this is version 2. So we have v2 invoices lookup. I don't know what the shell commands for that is. This one even doesn't have the shell command. Okay, let's try this. This is v2. v2, it has to spit out this. Let's try this as v2. So we need to change lookup. Does it take in a body? let's see this. Text in a body, but where is the body? I don't see the request for the body. The object. Okay, why don't we create an invoice using Alice's node and then decode it from there? So what we could do, so we'll go ahead and use the post, and then the code that creates an invoice is add invoice, and it takes in this huge body, and it has this v1, uses invoices, I think invoices here like that. And did I get this endpoint right? Is it invoices? I see invoice here. I may have got it wrong. This is list invoices and then lookup invoice. Yeah, I think it's correct. Okay, let's go ahead and just create an invoice and then decode it from that side, from Alice, and see how it works. So invoices, and then for this huge body, the only thing that we need is the value, and the only thing that you need is the value, maybe, and the memo. So make sure that, so we have the value, maybe we'll call it amount, let's call it value from, and then the memo, and then when you get that, so this will be a post request. So remember, our post request takes in a body, takes in a data, and then which is any. We are not using TypeScript today, so I'll pass it there as raw as it comes through, and then we'll have to look at the endpoint. Everything is a string, so we'll probably have to pass that amount into a string, and then the memo, where is it? Here, it's also a string. So we'll go ahead and call invoice add, and then I think everything is the same. Let me look at my post request. It starts with data and it goes with URL. Post, the macaron is there. So data, the data is here, and then the invoices, and then everything is there. So using this endpoint, maybe I'll duplicate this, and I'll call this create invoice, and then I'll add this to add, and then my body has value. I'll keep it as a string because I don't want to do a lot of logic passing it there, so I'll just enter it as a string, and then I'll call this memo message. Memo is like a message that you can encrypt in your invoice. So I'll call this wrong invoice because it's a wrong one. So we have that, and we're expecting the value and the body, and then we get the result. So here it's invoices as the URL. Hopefully I'm doing it right, and everything looks set to go. So it's invoices, which is there. Okay, so let's try that and see. So yeah, so it has created the invoice, and this is when, so like I said, when the moon guy creates an invoice, so this string will be encrypted in a QR code. So maybe let me try. I don't know if we have time, but I'll try to show you how a QR code does that. So there's a website called QR code generator. I don't know if I can find a free one so that you can see what that thing does for you. Hopefully this is paid. So usually you paste it there, and then it creates weird pop-ups. Okay, get those cookies out of the way. So this is what, so this string has been decoded into this QR code. So when you scan, the message is behind this. So usually that string, when that code, when it's scanned by another wallet, this is what you pass through. This is what you pass through, and I think we can try and test that again and see if this can still work. From Alice to read it and see. Looks like it's not going to read. Let's try with the R hash. See if it reads again. Okay. I think I have an issue with the endpoint. I could be calling the wrong endpoint. I'll have to look through that and see the endpoint that decodes the invoice. So like I said, this documentation is not very clear. There's a lot of stuff that you'll have to figure out on your own. There's a lot of try and error. I remember I spent some good time with that issue of the decode invoice. I could have hacked it in a very funny way that I don't remember, but maybe look at this decode pay request. Let's try that. So let's try the decode pay request. So for the decode invoice, so let's go and change that endpoint from invoice to pay request. Good enough, it's the same, and try that to see if it works. So the thing, we pass in the pay request, that huge string. Yeah, so it has decoded it. It gives you the amount, and then it gives you the description as the memo. So clearly we're in the dial-up era, and there's a lot of polishing that they need to do with this documentation. But as software, you have to keep on trying, you have to keep on testing out stuff, because now this is this code, this endpoint. You look at the shell command, is not the same as the terminal command that decodes it. So for me, the natural thing that I looked at, I thought that the shell command would be the same as the endpoint. Clearly, the developers were thinking of another thing, so they tried to separate that. Let's try and do this thing that we tried last time. Let's try and see if we can decode an invoice from Bob. Clearly, this doesn't have a memo. Let me try to create this one from here and see if it gives us a space for a memo. It doesn't. So we'll have to put that. Time is going. Let me try and decode that and see if we can get that there and read Bob's invoice. Yeah, so finally we've read Bob's invoice. You can see it gives you the amount. This does not have a description, and it's just that. So I don't know, we have 1 minute. I don't think it will help us. It will allow us to pay, but I wanted to show you how you can pay off that invoice. Maybe just to go through that, what you need to understand is the main goal is to read, decode, and then pay. So when you go, for example, when you're using a wallet like Moon, maybe you want to pay your friend, and they're using Shukuru, you're using Moon. Usually, what happens is they use these endpoints, so they create the endpoints from, maybe let me create a 950 endpoint, and I'll call it invoice from Moon. You create that, and then when you create that, we copy this pay request, and then your other wallet. So this string is encrypted into the QR code that I showed you here. So it's encrypted here, and then when you scan, it decodes the information about the invoice, and it reads it like this. And then when you read it, it gives you the amount, and it gives you the money from Moon. So now there you can create the pay invoice and then pay out the user. So hopefully, if times allows us, we will be able to create the endpoint that pays off. But the activity of creating the invoice is very, very crucial. You need to have these macaron files. So maybe if I try to mess up the path of the macaron, and maybe try to create a new invoice and see what will happen. So I'll say invoice to fail. I don't know if I saved this. Hopefully I saved. Yes, I did. So if I try to enter, it shows you that, hey, something went wrong. Your path is wrong. Your macaron path is wrong. You need to find a real macaron path. So these are admin keys. So whenever you try to create your invoice, you need to make sure that you have your macaron path, your files authentic and stored there. Yeah, up to there, I don't know if you guys have any question. I think we'll handle the payments maybe tomorrow, and I think we'll be able to drag ourselves ahead. Yeah.
All right, all right. Thank you so much. I'm always excited when I see developers skills with dealing with errors and so on because I learned so much from that experience. That's why I love live sessions. Yes, you have to the action of figuring it out. Do we have any questions? Does anyone have questions? So
Yeah, I think we have a
okay.
hand. Yes, Calvin.
Yeah. So I just wanted to ask something. Maybe you can know. I was trying to download this Polar, and it says it requires Docker, but I have Docker, and when I try to run Polar, it's I don't know. Maybe it's a permissions thing. It can't.
uh
It's like Docker isn't. I don't know if you dealt with the problem. Docker isn't working with it.
are you using Windows? You're using Windows, right?
No, I'm using Linux Ubuntu.
You're using line. So I think I had that issue when I
No, I'm
was.
using Linux Ubuntu.
Yeah,
Ubuntu.
yeah. I think I had that issue sometime. So what the thing with Polar, you need to have the latest Docker images. Like, make sure you have Docker Compose that is the latest. It could be an issue with the versions.
Okay.
Try to update Docker, please, and then you relaunch it. Another thing, before you open Polar, first close everything, and then you start with Docker. Make sure Docker is running, then you go ahead and open Polar, because it has to first read those images, and then it will download it as it opens and boots up.
Okay. Let me try. Okay, thank you.
Yes, you can continue with discussions in the Telegram channel. I think I posted the link. The other thing is, I don't know if Mr. Jovan could add us the Friday and then We also add the Friday on the sessions because I feel this session will really help very many people, even not during this time, but afterwards. You know, when you look back and see and say, "Hey, this is how I can go about it." So, would Friday be a good day to add on to the boot camp?
Yeah, no problem, no problem. I think it we can work through that.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you so
so
much.
this project I'll post it. I'm going to push it on GitHub. You will have you will be able to clone it and maybe install everything and then try to run it locally, and then maybe we'll push on that tomorrow.
Okay, thank you so much. I think we can call it a session. Yeah, thank you for the time. Thank you for the session. I've loved it. I've enjoyed it surely. Okay, have a nice time.